Clostridium botulinum by Neha, Chug. The objectives that we will be talking about today are: what is Clostridium botulinum, its characteristics, its structure, its biology, the virulence, clinical diseases that it can cause, its epidemiology, diagnosis, and the treatment, prevention, and control. What is Clostridium botulinum? Some of the characteristics of this bacteria are that it's gram-positive, it's rod-shaped, it's spore-forming, it's anaerobic in nature, it's large and fastidious. This bacteria can be found in soil, water, and the intestines of humans and animals. This is a picture of Clostridium botulinum. As we can see, this gram stain is purple in color, which tells us that it is a gram-positive bacteria. The shape of this is pretty clear as well. It's rod-shaped. Clostridium botulinum produces a potent neurotoxin. There are 7 different types of botulinum toxins that have been recognized so far. They are A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. The ones that are related to human diseases are A, B, E, and F. C and D are commonly found in animal diseases, those with cattle, horses, and poultry. Clostridium botulinum toxin has a small subunit, which is an A chain, with zinc endopeptidase activity. It also has a non-toxic subunit, which is a B chain. The non-toxic proteins that it has protects the neurotoxin when it's going through the digestive tract. This allows them to live in the digestive tract and not die. The neurotoxin remains at the neuromuscular junction, and it prevents the release of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. It blocks neurotransmission at peripheral cholinergic synapses, which prevents muscle contraction, and it leads to flaccid paralysis. This is another term that could be said as weak muscles. There are 4 different types of clinical diseases that this bacteria can cause, one of them being foodborne botulism. Patients become very weak and dizzy, and this can be noticed 1 to 3 days after consuming the contaminated food. The initial signs are blurred vision, dilated pupils, dry mouth, constipation, and abdominal pain. Patients will also see weakness in peripheral muscles, which is also known as flaccid paralysis. Those with respiratory paralysis can die in this kind of disease. Neurotoxin is irreversibly bound, and it inhibits the release of excitatory neurotransmitters for a long period of time. Hence, complete recovery takes months or even years, or until affected nerve endings regrow. The mortality rate was once 70%, interestingly. Now it has been reduced down to 5 to 10% due to better supportive care. The second disease that it can form is infant botulism. This disease was first recognized in 1976. It is the most common form of botulism in the United States. The neurotoxin produced in vivo by Clostridium botulinum colonizes in the GI tract of infants. Adults are also exposed to this in their diet, but they have competitive bowel microbes which can prevent the survival of this bacteria. Typically, this disease affects infants that are younger than 1 year of age, mostly between 1 to 6 months. The symptoms are initially nonspecific, like constipation, weak cry, failure to thrive. That's why it's very hard to initially tell if the infant has this certain disease. Flaccid paralysis and respiratory arrest can develop. Interestingly, the mortality rate for this disease is very low, about 1 to 2%. The third disease that this kind of bacteria can cause is wound botulism. Wound botulism develops from toxin production in contaminated wounds. The symptoms of this disease are identical to the foodborne disease. So a patient with this kind of disease will have blurred vision, would have dilated eyes, and would have weak muscles. However, the incubation period is 4 days or longer, and the GI tract symptoms are fewer than in the case of foodborne disease. The fourth type of disease that this bacteria can cause is inhalation botulism. This is the disease that causes a high mortality rate, and it occurs when there's an inhalation exposure to a botulinum toxin that will have a rapid onset of symptoms such as flaccid paralysis and pulmonary failure. Epidemiology. It's commonly isolated in soil and water samples throughout the world. The 4 types of botulisms that have been identified are foodborne, infant, wound, and inhalation. In the United States, there are very few cases of foodborne botulism. However, those that are seen are due to canned foods. Infant botulism is more common in the United States and has been associated with consuming foods like honey and infant milk powder. Dust and soil contains spores as well, so those children that consume those can also be affected by this. Wound botulism is an incident and it's very unknown. It's a very rare occasion that we will see this kind of disease. Inhalation botulism is a major concern in bioterrorism because inhaling this bacteria can cause a rapid onset and high mortality rate. Diagnosis of foodborne botulism is confirmed if toxin activity is seen in the implicated food or in patient's serum, feces, or gastric fluids. Infant botulism is confirmed if the toxin is seen in infant's feces or serum. Wound botulism is confirmed if the toxin is seen in the patient's serum or wound. Toxin activity can usually be detected early in the disease. Treatment, prevention, and control. Patients with botulism require the following treatments: ventilatory support, which can reduce mortality, elimination of organisms from the GI tract through metronidazole or penicillin therapy, administering trivalent botulinum antitoxin to bind to toxins that are circulating in the bloodstream. There are protective levels of antibodies that do not develop after the disease. So this causes the patients to be more susceptible to different and various kinds of infections. Disease can be prevented by destroying spores in food to prevent germination or destroying the performed toxin itself. Infant botulism is associated with consumption of honey and contaminated soil, mainly. Hence, those that are under 1 year of age should not be fed that. These are my references, and thank you for watching. Hope you had a good time.